Welcome to part 2, and we're going to start modelling basically. Um, as you can see, I've put a secondary image in the background there. Uh, Basically, this one at the front I've got uh, doesn't actually show that much of a Glock really. The one in the background I've put on as this one, which has this little section on the front here, and also that slight concave section there on the grip, which we'll model in as well, just for fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the grip, and then on another tutorial we'll start on the slide at the top, and then maybe a third with lots of little twiddly bits on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by creating a plane in the right viewport, which is the left one. Here we go. And what you'll notice is if I put that on move, the x-axis is 0, which is the axis along that direction. That's going to be very important for when we start mirroring the work. What the idea is we model half the gun and then mirror it over, even though the details on either side of the gun are different. We're only going to model half the gun and texture half the gun, really. If you think about it, when you have a weapon in a first-person viewport, you only ever see half of it, and you only may as well model half of it. Not only is it quicker, you save resources, and you also save a lot of room for texture space, so you can put more pixels onto your polygons and have a higher resolution texture. So right, what we're going to do is we're going to apply the material we made in the first tutorial, and we're going to put it on see-through, and we're going to convert to an edible poly, and we're just going to start off by moving some of the verts about, really. And we want to right, so what we're going to do is we're going to model in two ways. First of all, we're going to insert vertexes on edges, and we're also going to extrude edges. Extruding involves you selecting the edge, holding down shift and then dragging. That will create another polygon. And secondly, we're going to insert vertices. So if we click along here, select vertices, and then we can pull these out. The main problem with doing this select vertex or insert vertices method is it doesn't show your triangles, which can be a problem because it can get a bit messy. But there are options to go in and smarten them up. With the turn button there, and you've also got edit triangle, and we'll look at those later as we get going. So we're really just going to start off by getting some of the main details down. So we're going to follow up flat area of the grip. Oh yeah, I'm going to select that and hit backspace to get rid of it. Pretty simple. A slight curved section along here. And then we're going to follow up the curve up there. Another important thing to note is that this area of the gun is very unlikely to be seen, so slamming in 100 polygons in it is a bit of a waste. When it's in game, you're just going to have your hand over it the whole time, and you're not really going to see what's going on. The main areas you're going to want geometry is going to be towards the back of the gun, which is going to be up close to the player, with slightly less towards the front because that's not going to be seen so much, and again not too many on the grip because it's not going to be seen. We're probably looking at no more than 2,000 polys on this, but I would rather keep it to about 1,500. What I'm going to do is just hide that quickly. As you can see, this model is slightly different, the Glock. That shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to keep with the other one. Okay, so what we're going to do is insert vertex. And we're just going to start sculpting this shape here, following the underside of this groove. Say we don't want to go too over the top triangles. Put one more in. And insert that. Right, that will do for now. We'll come back to this in a minute. And we're just going to follow it up to the top there. There is a slight dip along there, if you check out the reference images. There we go, you can see it's slightly curved. So we're going to try and recreate that curve as well. You can see it along there as well. Where am I? What I'm going to do is hold down Shift. Right, I'm going to select this vertex here, and I'm going to get the Z coordinate, and I'm going to copy that and put it onto this one Z coordinate, so that they're both perfectly level. I'm going to just drag him along there. This is going to just give us a perfectly straight line all the way along there. It's good to keep your models neat as possible, especially when it's a gun, because they're very mechanical, and to give a good representation of something mechanical, you're going to want it to be very perfect, really, machine made, etc. Organic models, you probably wouldn't do it quite so much, because organic models you want a natural, not necessarily perfect. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Try and follow the top curvature of this little dip here. Just going to get rid of him. I'm also going to get rid of that. That's just by selecting and hitting backspace. It's going to do an insert vert there. And there's a tool called Bridge, which is quite handy. And so what I'm going to do is you can select this edge here, Bridge, and then select. Oh, actually, no, sorry. So you select, click on that edge when you've got Bridge selected, and then click on the second edge, and that will create a polygon. It saves going through the Create Polygon tool, create, and then clicking on every single vert. So it's slightly quicker, but does exactly the same thing. Okay, so we're ready to create this little dip section. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to select it all. Select these, select it all. Select these edges along the bottom, hold down Shift and drag. That's going to extend out and create some geometry. And then I'm going to select the vertices and target weld. Target weld these two verts here. And I'm just going to slightly rearrange what we've created. Create a nicer curve. And then we're going to select these verts along here. Change our viewport. And I'm just going to drag those out. Like so. We're then going to drag these back in. To say you could add more geometry on something like this, but to say how much is it really going to be seen? something you should ask yourself a lot when creating weapons, creating any characters. How much is whatever you're creating being seen? And if it's not much, there's not too much point in adding tons of geometry onto it. Now I'm just going to select the whole lot, the whole ring of geometry. And what I'm going to do is, by pressing R, I'm going to select the scale tool. Again, hold down Shift, and I'm going to scale along there, which will again create a nice lot of geometry. And just drag that in a wee bit. And now I'm just going to go in and rearrange a little bit. I think I'm going to want an extra edge along here, so I'm just going to select those two edges and press connect here, which will create an extra edge between those two edges that you had selected. Drag that out there. Like to say, now I'm just going to go through and really just rearrange this. Seems a little sharp on these corners. So, another thing you should look out for as well really is that sometimes following a reference 100% will end up looking a little funny in game, and sometimes it's better to use your own artistic license, isn't it, really, and you know, have a little fiddle about with what. I mean, if it looks nearly like a Glock, I'm sure people will register it as a Glock. So yeah, this is just creating the inwards dip. A little bit too. So we can go back to the solid view and just have a quick look how that looks. Alright, I just want to bring these out a little bit. That's not quite what I'm after. In fact, what I'm going to do, I wasn't sure if I needed to, I was going to keep the geometry down, so I'm going to pull these out to here. So that we've got a slight raise rather than the sharp look that we had when they were in. I'm just going to bring this whole lot in a wee bit as well, because I think it's sticking out, protruding a little too much. Right, so what I'm going to do is just select this, and we're going to use the x-axis and make sure all of these are at the same x-axis. It does look as though the ones correct at the bottom are sticking in a little too much. So I'm going to make sure that's even all the way around. And I'm just going to hit on the polygon tool, and I'm going to create polygon to go all the way around. And then lastly, I'm going to go back to the edge tool, and I'm going to just turn some edges and neaten the whole thing up. To say it can end up making quite a big mess. There you go, so you want to try and get a nice zigzag like that. And as well along. Oh. I mean, this is quite a mess, to be honest. And you do want to keep the mess to a minimum. The main problem you're going to get is smoothing groups. Issues when you put on all the smoothing groups. But a lot of the time when you actually have a texture on the model, smoothing groups isn't something that really shows up too much. Let's bring this in a wee bit more. So that's the groove. Not very neat at the moment. but if I was being picky, I would sit and tweak this for hours and hours on end. Right, let's carry on. Right, what we want to do is create a curve along here. I'm going to unhide all and get that other weapon back, the one that was sort of our main reference. And what we're going to do is just pull this out because it's along the as we say, everything, sort of the main body of the weapon, all of these verts along here on 0 on the x coordinate. So I'm going to pull it out a bit, and what we're going to do is select all of the edges down here, and in this viewport we're going to drag them out like so, and just have a quick rearrange to follow the main shape and the flow of our weapon, like so. We're really going to do a slight bit of editing on this section here. I have to pull this down a bit. I'm going to select that edge and just drag out a polygon from it. Okay. Just insert a couple of verts. Drag that along to there. Get rid of that one. I'm going to get this one's y coordinate, Control C, and put it onto here, Control V. There we go. And then we're just going to drag out another edge from here, select verts, and target weld this vert to this vert. There we go. Right, the next job is to put the coordinates of these edges. In fact, it's best to do it through the vertices onto one. We can just right click on these two little arrows. There we go. And go back to the edges now. I'm going to pull that out a bit. Drag that in. We'll do that again. So I'm just going to pull that away from the 0 on the x coordinate. Hold down Shift and pull in again, and you create another set of polygons. And I'm just going to right click here again and make sure it's on 0. And then what I'm going to do is just select all of this because that's rather thick handle. Pull that into there. What this does is creates quite a round handle, but it also gives you a real good opportunity to go in and optimise the hell out of it at the end. It really does. I'm just going to select this. Oh, actually, that's a good point. Some nice tools for you. We've got ring and loop, which are selection tools. So what I'm going to do is select this one edge at the top, and I'm just going to hit ring, which will select the ring of vertices coming away from that. The ring and loop tools are very handy for when creating organic stuff and you're doing edge loops, especially on faces, around mouths, eyes, etc., etc. But now I've got my selection. I'm going to just hit connect, which connects all your polygons, adds more. So it connects your edges and creates more polygons, and it also automatically selects your newly created geometry, as you can see. So I'm just going to drag that out, and that's sort of the main grip of our handle. Pull these out. tucking these in a little bit. Make sure we've got a nice curve. And we're going to select these edges, hold down shift, pull them out, target weld this vertice to here, and then we're going to select here, bring up here. Oh. Our mouse is dying. And we're just going to make sure all of these vertices along here have got the same Z coordinate. Like so, with the copy and paste functions. And then we're just going to Control Shift to pull them up. And that's going to create that curve. Or help to follow the curve round of the grip up around there. Just going to take the Z coordinate from here, from this vertex just here, sorry, and put it to these vertices. As you can see, they haven't actually all gone to the same place. It takes an average of all the verts that you have selected. So obviously, yeah, you can see that the X position here and here are different, and it doesn't average, specs out a bit, but it's all good. I'll just target weld this vert to here. Let's have a quick check. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong axis there. It was the Z axis. That was the problem, not the X one. To say though, it's not always about 100% following your reference. Sometimes it's good just to have a little fiddle and see what comes out better, really. There you go. So that's the grip. Again, I think it's a little bit too thick. Thin it out a little bit. Next thing we want to do is just put a quick mirror tool on it, or symmetry tool. So first of all, we need to make sure that the alignment or the pivot is along 0. So I'm just going to go under the hierarchy tab, effect pivot only, and I'm just going to center to object, and then I'm going to move the x-axis by right-clicking to 0, 0, 0. And then I'm going to put a new modifier on, which is symmetry. That's done the symmetry down the wrong axis. I think we want the z-axis. There we go. And when we turn that on and off, you can see it's basically mirroring the weapon. What we can do is, if you go back down lower in the stack, the symmetry modifier obviously disappears, but if you click on this little button, little test tube guy, you can put the end results on or off. So I'm just going to put that on for a minute, which means that I can edit my one half and it will show the end result on the other half. There we go. Just trying to get the thickness right. You know, so I'm working on the one which has been highlighted as orange, and when I make adjustments, you'll see the adjustments take effect on this second half of the weapon. I'm just going to get okay. So I'm going to get rid of this edge along here. Don't really need that at the moment. Get rid of that. And I'm just going to pull these back to here because there's a slight dip just there, which we don't really want to model. I'm going to use a vert which we created earlier just to kind of carry on the curve, the grip going up around the trigger and stuff. So vert in there. This is a section where you do want a little bit of geometry. What a nice smooth curve. There you go. Get rid of that vertex there. It's not being used for anything. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same thing we did with the back of the grip along here, down the front. So we're going to select all these edges here, drag them out, and just rearrange a little bit so that you're following your reference as much as possible. Alright, and again, have all these selected. I'm going to put these on 0 on the x-axis. We're then going to pull them out again, holding down shift, create another loop of polygons, and right click to put them along the x-axis. Alright, next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that they're quite symmetrical front and back. Actually, no, I think I was going to keep it like this actually. No, I won't. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it. Right, I'm going to take the x-axis from the geometry we created earlier, which is basically the equivalent loop of polygons on the front, and I'm going to copy and paste the x-axis along here. This is to keep it clean and smart, and the cleaner it is, we want to try and give this machine type look. It's not handmade, it's been made by been made to perfection. And we're going to do exactly the same as we did on the back, and we're going to select this line of edges here and connect. I'm going to drag them out. And these ones along here we're going to drag down a little bit, just to keep that curve following along. I mean, to be honest, this is probably a fair few too many polygons, but it'll all get reduced as we start to optimise the weapon towards the end. Bring him in. I think I'm just going to patch up the bottom. So we're going to select this edge, hold down shift, drag it in. This vertex here, we're going to target weld to this vert here. Doosh. With the source engine, you can have holes in the mesh, that's not a problem. So we are going to create a fair bit of geometry which is going to be detached from the actual gun itself. For example, some of these little sections here and that just basically saves polygons in the long run. But on the actual models themselves, well, on the different objects themselves, you want to try and keep it as neat as possible, basically. Having holes where there don't need to be holes, or doesn't need to be holes, will just waste polygons, really. And it will also give you smoothing group issues, which is definitely something you don't want, because they're not very fun to sort out. So just make sure you do everything properly as you go along. Tight weld. There we go. I guess I will make a quick start on this trigger section as well. Just along here, we'll get that done, and that will finish this tutorial. Just have a quick about there. There we go. Okay, so what we want to do is you want to extrude out from here, and we want to extrude from this section here, and then we'll keep extruding and follow this plastic guard along here. So what we're going to do is just going to use the geometry we've already created in the past, just get him in about the right position. As we say, I mean, this whole area is going to be covered by a finger and a hand, and you're not really going to see it anyway, so again, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, in my opinion, but I'm sure a lot of people will whinge at me for my Glock not being 100%. What we're going to do is we're going to just make a selection here, these edges, and again just hit the connect tool, and we're then going to drag what we've just created up to here. And that's given us the base we need to actually start extruding some of this geometry out. Don't need those ones. There you go. So if I select it, and actually the best way to do this is not to extrude actual faces like this, because if we extrude that, what you'll find, let's pull it out as well, is that it'll also create a polygon on the inside here, which is something we definitely don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that polygon there, and then we're going to extrude from the edges, because it's a lot less messy and you know exactly what you're creating. So I'm just going to extrude a few times and just stop following the reference with your newly created faces. Again, use as few polygons as you can. The Glock is a really, really simple weapon, really. You really don't need too many polygons. There. Again, select this edge, extrude all the way along to here. Let's put these in the final positions. What we've got with the connect tool as well is this little box, which is a settings box, and what we can do is tell it to connect with more than one segment. So just bung that up to 4 or so and see how it goes. Follow this along. I reckon we'll just do one more along here. Oh, whoops. It does save your settings, by the way. So if you want to change how many how many segments it's doing, you have to go back into the settings and have a little fiddle about. Just going to go in and delete all these. So make the model look a bit messy. And just have a bit of a fiddle. Some final tweaking. Right, now if we have a look at what we've made, you can see that's sort of the general base of the trigger guard. And what we just need to do now is just connect them up down the seam. Just going to select along here and along here. And as usual, holding down shift, we're just going to drag them towards the middle. And we're just going to have to connect them up manually, I believe. This is one of those little things in Max that I never really could understand. Like right now I've selected the edge tool. All these edges that I've got selected are on the they're all the same on the old coordinates, on the X coordinate, but it won't let you manually type it in. But when you have the vertices selected, it's happy to let you do it. Don't know why, but it just means I'm going to have to go through and select all the verts. And then just right click to put them all on 0. Up here we're going to want to do some target welds. So we're going to target weld this vert to here to make sure there's no holes. Another way of doing it. Sorry, target weld this one as well. What I would quite like is to have a slight curve on this bit because it looks a bit funny being totally flat. So I'm going to select, actually I'm going to select from here. I'm just going to pull it out slightly. Just get that sharpness of it off of it. The Glock definitely does seem to be quite a nicely rounded gun overall, so I just sort of want to keep that feel throughout. Again, we'll do the same on the inside. Pull that out ever so slightly. And pull these in ever so slightly. And lastly, just pull that one up a little bit. So what we've been using here is the edible poly tool, and we've been extruding edges and inserting vertices. I'm just going to delete these two here as well. Yoink, yoink. To create the grip and also the trigger guard of the gun. Next tutorial we start creating the front section of the gun and possibly the clip as well. I'm thinking of making this into a silence Glock, putting a big old clip on it, and replacing the TMP, because as you all know, Glock 18s anyway are full auto, and I think it'll be pretty damn fun. But have fun. If you've got any comments or questions, please let me know. And thanks very much for watching.